Your mattress is made of straw and regret. The straw pricks through the fabric and into your ribs like unfinished thoughts. You shift, but the mice shift too bold tonight, tunneling beside your spine as if they know you won't fight back. You never fight anything anymore, not the cold, not the hunger, not the silence. The sky outside hasn't turned, but the dark feels thinner now. That awful kind of stillness that presses into your chest and whispers, "Something's coming." You lie still, eyes open, hands tucked beneath your chin like you're praying, but you're not praying, not here, not after what happened last time. The hearth is out. The air tastes like wet leather and stale mutton fat. Your blanket is a ragged piece of wool dyed with old lark blood. You tell yourself it's warm, but it's not. You don't shiver. That would be too loud. You listen instead. Not for morning birds, they stopped nesting here. Not for footsteps, those come too late. You listen for the bell, a single strike, that's all it takes, bronze against wood. It echoes once across the plain, and somebody's life ends in silence. Sometimes it's a thief. Sometimes it's a child. Sometimes it's a mistake. Nobody explains. They just tie red silk to the post and ride away. You remember the last time the bell rang. The boy who braided his sister's hair that morning and bled into the snow before sunset. They say the bell is mercy, a cleaner death, a clearer rule, but it's not mercy. It's forgetting, forged into metal, and it always comes before dawn. The mice twitch at your side. One scurries over your ankle. You don't flinch. You don't move. You're too afraid to wake up fully. What if you move wrong? What if your name is already written? You can't even remember the last time you spoke above a whisper. The cold steals language first, then time, then hope. Outside, a crow cries once, then nothing. Even the wind is holding its breath. The silence is worse than sound now. It sounds expectant. You close your eyes. Not to rest, but to disappear for a few seconds longer. And as your breath clouds the straw, you wonder, what if history never remembers you at all? No face, no name, just a village that once heard a bell. And then didn't. So tell us, quietly, where are you listening from tonight? Or what time does your silence begin? The yurt creaks above your head like a sleeping animal. Leather stretched over bone, patched with hide and soot and prayers. You don't remember a time before it, before smoke stained the walls, before wind found the holes and taught you how to shiver. It's morning, maybe. The fire pit is gray and lifeless. You stretch a hand toward it anyway, like it might remember something warm. The soot marks your wrist. You let it. It's the only thing that touches you today. You dress slowly, one layer, then another. Everything you own still smells of horse sweat and mutton grease. You used to mind. You used to care. Now you only hope nothing rips. Outside, the sky is the color of worn metal. Blue, maybe, if the clouds weren't so heavy with breath. There are no fences here, no lines in the land. Only the feel of frozen grass under felted soles, and the occasional crows who don't wait to greet you. They already know how this morning feels. You walk to the edge of the camp where the others have started gathering. Nobody speaks. That's the rule when the bell hasn't rung yet. You stand beside the old woman with the milky eye and the boy who lost his fingers last winter. You all pretend to look out at nothing. Just the plain. Just the stretch of white dust that leads toward the old post. And there it is, the execution bell, not hung in a tower or a shrine, not polished with pride like you'd see in a Han city or a Persian caravan. No, this one is just a crooked bronze shape nailed between two larch beams, a little taller than you, green with rot, wrapped in old silk that's frayed and fluttering like dying moths. It only rings when the Khan says so, and he only says so when someone's blood is meant to remind the rest of you what order looks like. The bell hasn't rung today, but that doesn't mean it won't. The last time it rang, it was your neighbor's son, accused of trading a sacred horse pelt for millet. One clang, and his mother never looked up again. Your hands feel stiff. You flex your fingers, and they crack like twigs. Someone coughs, then stops. Too loud. Even that sound could be taken wrong. You shift your weight. Your sandals squeak. So much for dignity. In the far distance, across the plain, a black dot moves. A rider. The first one of the morning. Maybe it's a tax rider. Maybe a scout. Maybe worse. Someone next to you mutters a prayer in Turkic. The woman with the milky eye rolls a pebble between her fingers. She never says names aloud anymore. Not since her brother was taken. Names don't help the dead, and they don't protect the living. The rider is closer now. You squint. Your breath is warm fog. You taste yesterday's hunger. It's not the taxman. You'd know the banners. It's one of his, the bellman, not a soldier, not a judge, just the one who strikes the metal. Young. His armor doesn't fit properly. He has the look of someone who was once a scholar before the horses came. You've seen him once, maybe twice. He doesn't smile, doesn't look at the crowd. He only rides up, waits, then lifts the wooden mallet. And for a second, everything holds, even the wind. You feel your pulse in your teeth. In your ribs, in your memory, he strikes not once, but twice. Two slow, wide clangs that fold through the village like thunder through wool. Not death this time, exile. You exhale without meaning to. It comes out shaky, like a breath that forgot what it was holding in. Someone is being exiled, not killed, not today. A younger boy, the one with the crooked jaw, starts sobbing quietly. His sister wraps an arm around his shoulders and hums something into his ear. You can't make out the tune. Maybe she's making it up. You think about how two clangs used to mean something else in older days, before the cognates swallowed your lands, before even the Tang ambassadors came. Back then, two bells meant weddings. Now it means something less hopeful. A death without ceremony, without witness. The bellman dismounts. He ties something to the post. A strip of red wool, a symbol, a marker. Then he rides away, fast, gone. Nobody moves yet. That's also part of the rule. Let the dust settle. Let the silence chew through your fear. Let the wind finish whatever it's whispering. Eventually, the old man with the sheepskin cloak steps forward. You don't know his name, just his smell, boiled milk and sage. He reads the sign. You can't read Mongolian script. Neither can most of the village, but he can. He nods, frowns, spits. Then he turns to the crowd and says one name. You don't recognize it, and that makes you feel ashamed and relieved and guilty again. It's a woman, someone from the goat tents, one of the quieter ones. You think she lost a child last year. She stands. Doesn't cry, doesn't speak. She walks to the edge of the village without a bag, without a blanket. She doesn't look back. She vanishes like a mistake in the snow. No one follows. You're not supposed to. And that's how it ends, or doesn't, because after the crowd drifts apart, each person pretending not to be broken, you notice something. Tied to the execution bell, just below the red wool, a scrap of paper, wet with dew, barely clinging to the bronze. It wasn't there before. You glance around. Nobody else has seen it. Your feet move before you think. Step, step. You reach the post. You tug the paper loose. It's a prayer strip, a Tibetan one. Old, the ink nearly gone, but you can still make out one word, not a name, not a threat, just forgiveness. You fold it and slip it into your sleeve, and when you look up, the wind has shifted. Something's coming, but what? Wasn't even the worst part. The prayer strip is soft between your fingers, worn thin, as if it's been held too tightly for too long. The ink has run. Some letters gone to smoke, but one word remains barely, forgiveness. You don't know whose hand wrote it, and that might be the part that matters. You glance behind you. The others have already drifted away into yurts, into silence, into stories they will tell carefully and backwards, skipping the parts that might get them killed. No one saw you take the paper. You're not even sure if you saw it. Maybe it was a trick of morning shadow. Maybe the bell is playing games now. But your sleeve is warm where it rests, and that warmth feels real. You slip the prayer deeper into the seam. Then you walk slowly, the way you were taught to, with your steps soft and your gaze lower than the wind. The bell still sways slightly behind you, not from movement, from memory. The village is too quiet now. That's how it always feels after two clangs. Exile is softer than death, but not by much. There are no second chances after the bell. Just the plain, the cold, and the beasts who follow the scent of the punished. Your feet carry you past the goat pens, past the faded yurts where smoke trickles from holes like thin, tired breath. The fabric walls flutter but don't speak. The air smells of dung, milk, and yesterday's ash. You've grown used to it, too used to it. You think you hear a cough behind one of the hides, the sharp kind that comes from lungs dusted with sand and time. Then silence again. You reach the edge of the village and sit near the salt crates, not for rest, but because it's where the old ones sit when they want to remember who they used to be. The crates are cracked and pale, shipped from some Chinese border outpost years ago, marked with brushstrokes none of you can read. A broken fan leans nearby, silk ribs snapped, even beauty breaks here. You lower yourself onto the wood, let your bones settle, your joints sigh with you. It is so quiet, even the air feels guilty. You rub your hands together and pretend you still believe in gods. In the days before the Mongol generals came, people were buried with small jade discs under their tongues, a way to pay for the afterlife, a coin to speak in the dark. No one buries jade here anymore. Now, bodies are burned in silence, or left to the wind if no one dares to claim them. The bell decides, the bell and the Khan's men, but you've never seen the Khan. Only the shadow he leaves behind. There is movement beside you. Someone sits, no words, just the weight of a second person settling on the salt crate. You turn your head slowly. It's her, the girl with the yellow scarf. You don't know her name, just her voice, soft like a reed flute played in a fog. She spoke to you once, 3 winters ago, asked if you'd seen her brother's boots. You hadn't. You lied anyway, said yes. Just to have something to say, she doesn't look at you now, just stares straight ahead at the bell. Then, softly, she wasn't supposed to go. You say nothing. Your breath clouds between you like a slow ghost. The girl's hands are wrapped in linen, not fresh, not clean. You notice dark stains near her thumbs. I gave her the food. I swore to her. I swore. Her voice doesn't rise, but her shoulders do. Like wings thinking about flying. You want to ask who, but you already know. The woman from the goat tents. The exile, her sister, maybe, or cousin, or something closer. She didn't steal that knife. The girl murmurs it was already gone, but they needed someone, and she was quiet, and they always pick the quiet ones. She looks at you now. Would you remember me? She asks, if the bell rang. Your throat is dry. You try to answer, but your mouth betrays you. She nods once, as if silence is the answer she expected. Then she stands. You're lucky, she says. No one notices you. And then she walks away, and you sit there, burning in your own smallness. The bell doesn't ring again that day, or the next, but it's there, always, like a breath someone forgot to release. You try to keep busy, fix the broken strap on the water pail, scrape the mold from your winter boots, trade 3 onions for a handful of millet that smells like it came from a cracked sack somewhere east. No one talks about the exile. No one talks about the prayer. But something has shifted. You feel it in your bones. In the way the horses snort at night. In the way the children play without laughter now. The village is bent under the weight of something it won't name. Then the rider comes, 3 mornings later. This one wears the Khan's badge, silver, shaped like a falcon wing. No mistaking it. He doesn't go to the bell. He rides straight to the old man's tent, the one with the sheepskin cloak, the only one here who remembers how to read properly. He hands him a scroll, sealed with wax, red as fresh blood. Then he waits. The old man breaks the seal with a bone knife, reads once, twice. His hands tremble. Then he calls your name, yours, out loud, across the snow-packed ground. Everyone hears it. You freeze. You forget to breathe. The rider turns toward you. You stand slowly, as if your body might come apart if you move too fast. You walk forward, each step heavier than the last. The crowd watches, but no one reaches for you. No one stops this. The scroll is handed to you. You don't open it. You just hold it, like a weight, like a second heart you didn't ask for. The old man speaks softly. The Khan's orders, you're to be sent east. Why? His eyes soften. But he doesn't answer. No one ever answers. The scroll stays sealed in your hand, the prayer strip still hidden in your sleeve. Exile, a summons, punishment, or something else, and deep inside you. A question is rising. Why you? Why now? What did they see in your silence? What does the scroll say? That the bell did not. You stare at the scroll in your hand like it might vanish, like it should. The wax seal is intact, red as butcher's dye, stamped with the clawed sigil of the Khan, a falcon, wings stretched, talons drawn. No one around you speaks, not the old man who handed it to you, not the rider waiting beside his horse, not the villagers standing just far enough away to say it wasn't their business. Your name still hangs in the air like smoke that refuses to fade. You've never heard it spoken so loudly. It doesn't sound like it belongs to you anymore. Your fingers tighten around the parchment. You feel your breath in your chest, heavy, slow, unearned. The rider shifts in his saddle. He doesn't look at you, but he gestures with 2 fingers a flick eastward toward the steppe. No words, just movement, just direction. You glance at the old man beside you. He's staring at the ground as if reading stones. As if meaning lives in dirt now, he says nothing. You wait for someone to ask a question. No one does. You are dismissed by silence, not forgiven, not condemned, just released. The scroll stays sealed. You don't open it. Not here, not under so many watching eyes. Instead, you bow your head the way the riders do, short, sharp, almost impatient, and begin walking. Past the crates, past the goat pens, past the last yurt with the broken door flap that always slaps in the wind. You walk like someone who knows where they're going. You don't. The cold hits you just beyond the last fire pit. Real cold. Wind that bites instead of breathes. It climbs your spine and coils behind your ears. Your scarf is too thin. Your sandals, already cracked. You walk anyway. The scroll is tucked under your arm. The prayer strip still hidden in your sleeve. You wonder if they cancel each other out, one command, one plea. The plain stretches wide before you. Dull yellow where grass still peeks through frost. Gray, blue where the steppe rises to meet the clouds. Empty, or nearly, there's someone up ahead, a yoke cart, small, with a single ox plodding slow. Wooden wheels creak with each breath of wind. A figure walks beside it. You squint. Sunlight barely breaks through the haze, but it finds her scarf. Yellow, your steps slow. It's the same girl from the crates. She doesn't wave, doesn't stop. Just walks beside her ox as if the land belongs to her silence. You catch up eventually. Her hands are tucked inside her sleeves. One has dried blood near the edge. The linen is darker now. She notices your scroll. You're going too. You nod. She doesn't ask where. She already knows no one knows. You walk beside her in silence. The ox groans, wind tugs your clothes, tries to unwrap you. Still you walk. Around midday you stop beside a half-frozen stream. She feeds the ox something from a cracked wooden bowl. You drink from your cupped hands. The water tastes like bone and sky. Neither of you speaks, not until your fingers are nearly numb and your throat stops burning. Then she says they always send us east. Why? Because west is where the Khan sleeps. You think about that. The east has no cities, no temples, only plains, old trees, and things too quiet to name. You look down at the scroll again. The seal is still unbroken. Your fingers tremble slightly, not just from cold. She watches. You haven't read it. You shake your head. Then you don't know if it's exile. You blink. She sits down beside the stream and pulls her knees into her coat. They sealed my sister's message, too, she says. But it wasn't a punishment, it was an assignment. You frown, she shrugs. They make us disappear in different ways. You finally break the seal. Your thumb hesitates just before the wax snaps. The parchment unrolls slowly. The ink is sharp, clean, Mongolian script. You don't read well, but you know enough to find your own name, and beneath it, a single sentence that makes your ribs tighten. You are not being punished. You are being summoned, not by the Khan, not by a court, by a scribe, an imperial document, keeper, stationed at a river outpost near the ruins of an old Tang watchtower. Why a scribe? Why you? Your eyes scan the page again. At the bottom, one line in Chinese characters, too elegant to be translated easily, but you recognize one word, testify. You fold the scroll carefully, tuck it beneath your coat. She watches your face but doesn't ask. You feel something sting behind your eyes. You haven't cried in years. Not since your mother's hand went cold during the long winter. Even then, you only allowed yourself 4 tears. You wonder if this counts as grief, or fear, or just confusion. The sun begins to fall. You walk together, no longer trying to keep pace. There's no road, just worn tracks left by other forgotten feet. She hums once, a tune so old it probably outlived its words. You don't hum back, but you remember the rhythm. That night, you make a small fire near the hill's curve. The ox lies down like a tired priest. The stars come out without asking permission. She doesn't speak as you settle in, just leans against a bundle of hides and sighs. It's the kind of sigh that knows it won't be the last. You lie awake longer than you mean to. The scroll feels heavy in your pack, heavier than it should. You wonder, why would a scribe call for someone like you? Why would a bell sound exile? But the scrolls say testify. And whose story are you meant to tell? The fire has gone out. Only the smoke remains. It trails upward like the last thought of a dying man, thin, stubborn, unfinished. You watch it in the dim dawn light, knees drawn to your chest, cloak tight across your back. The girl is still asleep. If she dreams, she doesn't show it. The ox chews air in its sleep, its jaw twitching like it remembers better grass. You haven't moved in hours. There's frost on your eyelashes. You blink slowly, let it fall. Somewhere in your pack, the scroll waits, tucked beside the crumpled prayer strip. You haven't touched either since last night, but you feel both. As if they breathe with you now, you stand. Your knees complain. Your boots feel harder than they should, stiff with cold, crusted at the seams. You check them anyway. No holes yet, just old ones. You stretch your arms overhead, slow, careful. Every joint feels like it wants to stay in yesterday. There's a small spring a little down the slope half, hidden between yellow grasses and flat stones. You walk toward it, carefully, watchful. The plain is wide, but nothing here feels truly empty. The water is shallow but clear. Cold enough to sting your fingers, you wash your hands, then your face. Then you hold your wrists under the surface and feel your heartbeat like a drum made of questions. Above, the sky is pale gray, cloudless but not bright. Your reflection in the water looks older than you feel, or maybe exactly as old as you've become. When you return to the camp, she's awake. She doesn't greet you, just nods once, mouth still chewing a strip of dried radish. Her scarf is wrapped tight around her ears. Dream anything. You ask. She shrugs. I never remember. You wish you didn't. You pack quietly. Help tie the bundle of firewood. Share a few seeds from your pouch. Your fingers move without thought. It's the same ritual every time you leave somewhere behind. She watches your hands, then says, you walk like someone who's already been forgotten. You pause. She doesn't explain. You don't ask. The wind changes direction around midday. It begins to hum. You pull your cloak tighter, but the cold still finds your spine. It always does. There's an old road now, barely a path marked by toppled stone pillars and a line of charred trees. The girl says it was once a tax route during the Jin dynasty. Now it leads only to rot. As you walk, you pass an overturned cart halves, wallowed by weeds, bones beneath it, not fresh, not buried. You do not stop. History leaves no offerings. You break for rest under a crooked tree, the only one for miles. Its bark is carved with strange slashes, not letters, not symbols, just the kind of marks men make when they don't know what else to do with their knife. You sit with your back to it, stretch your legs. The girl squats a few feet away, sorting something in her lap. She glances at your scroll. You still don't know why you're going. She says, it's not a question. You shake your head. She looks down at her bundle, tugs a thread loose, doesn't speak for a while. Then softly, maybe someone wants to remember you and just doesn't know how. You breathe out through your nose. Not a laugh, not quite. She smiles faintly, or maybe they just need someone cheap who won't ask for tea. That earns the smallest sound from your throat, almost amusement. Almost, by late afternoon, The step opens wider as if the earth decided to give up pretending to hold form. Ahead in the distance, something rises, stone, broken, stacked. The girl narrows her eyes, the tower. She murmurs, "We're close." You squint. A squat, worn structure sits hunched beside a frozen riverbend, all that remains of an old Tang signal station. It once warned of invaders from the west. Now it warns of nothing. The roof is gone. The bricks lean in like shoulders whispering secrets. Smoke curls from a smaller building beside it. A shack or post. Or whatever word the Empire uses when it wants to seem organized. You both stop just before the crest. She touches your arm. "This is your summons." She says, "I won't go farther." You look at her. The wind pulls at her scarf. Her face is unreadable. Will you wait? A pause, only until nightfall. You nod, not in gratitude, just acknowledgement. Then you walk down alone. The shack door is crooked. One hinge gone. You knock. No answer. You knock again. A voice calls from within, clipped, irritated, too fast for comfort. You step inside. It's dim, warmer than expected. A clay stove burns in the corner, fat smoke trailing through a hole in the ceiling. The walls are lined with scrolls, wooden tags, cracked inkstones, and ledgers stacked like tired soldiers. At the low table sits a man, thin, bearded, ink-stained fingertips, a lump of rice cake in one hand, a brush in the other. He doesn't look up. You're late. He says, you don't answer. You weren't told a time. He waves the brush vaguely. Sit. You do. The floor creaks beneath you. He eyes your scroll, now unfolded in your hand. Took you long enough to read it. He mutters. Then finally he looks at you. His face is older than his voice. Lined, pale, eyelids heavy with sleep or secrets. You're here because of the bell. Your heart skips. He gestures with the brush. I have 4 reports. All say the same. Someone tampered with the execution post, placed a strip of script beneath the wool. Your sleeve tightens at the wrist. You say nothing. He leans forward. The prayer was written in Tibetan script, sacred calligraphy. You nod once, slowly, carefully. He watches you. I don't care if it was you. Another nod, unsure now. He tosses a wooden tag toward you. It skitters to a stop beside your knee. It reads, Observer, you'll stay here for a week. He says, watch the bell, watch who comes near it, record what you see. Your throat tightens, that's it. You manage. He shrugs. They don't want answers, they want patterns. You stare at the tag. You were summoned to watch a bell, but why you? The man begins writing again, dismisses you with a grunt. You rise, you step outside. And the wind greets you again as if it never stopped waiting. The tower looms beside you. You climb it out of instinct. The stones are cold, cracked, slick with time, but they hold. At the top, you find a ledge. Wide enough to sit, wide enough to think. The plain stretches around you like memory, endless, silent, half. Erased in the distance, far beyond the old track, you see your village, a smudge of smoke, a place where a bell still waits to be rung. And you wonder who else heard it, when it wasn't supposed to ring at all. The snow makes everything look cleaner than it is, even death, especially death. You've seen death in summer. That's the ugly kind, bloated, wet, buzzing with fat flies and bloated with gases that sing when you touch the skin. But in winter, death is quiet, polite, almost elegant. You could mistake a corpse for a sleeping man if the hands weren't curled like beetles, and the nose wasn't already bitten black by frost. This one is small. Too small. Your sister doesn't say anything when she sees the body in the snow. Just picks up the kindling and walks the long way around it, her boots leaving a wide arc in the white. You follow. You don't speak of him. You don't ask his name. You don't check his belt or shoes. You pretend he isn't there. That's what everyone does, because if he died here in the open in front of the shrine, it means the guards dropped him. Which means the bell rang for him, which means he was chosen, and if he was chosen, then asking questions might mean you're next. It used to be different. When someone died, the women would gather. The old ones would burn herbs and sing not happily, not loudly, but together. The body would be wrapped, cleaned, and set near the fire so the soul wouldn't get cold. Even the poorest widow would donate a strip of cloth or a handful of oats. Now no one sings, no one touches the dead, not when they come from the guards. You reach the yurt and duck inside. The warmth smothers you instantly. and your skin prickles with guilt. Why should you get warmth today? You hand your mother the wood. She doesn't thank you, just tosses it into the stove and pokes the coals until they hiss. Her fingers are red and cracked, her lips even more so. I saw them drag a girl last night. She murmurs, not looking up. Your sister goes stiff. They put silk on her mouth. Your mother adds, that means she screamed. You sit in the corner, on a folded rug that smells like horse dung and milk. You stare at your fingernails. One is split all the way down. You've been biting it again. She was maybe 12. Your mother says, maybe. No one replies. What is there to say? Your father used to say the bell was just that it only punished those who brought shame or chaos. He said it kept order, but your father also said he'd come back. He didn't. You dream of the boy in the snow. In the dream, he stands up. He walks over to the yurt and knocks with frostbitten fingers. He asks if he may come in. He's very polite. When you refuse him, he nods, lays back down in the snow, and dies again softer this time. You wake with your heart pounding. It's still night. The stove is dead. Your sister's breathing is shallow. Your mother is curled like a comma. You rise without sound, push open the yurt flap and step into the snow again, and he's still there, lying beneath the shrine alone, face turned toward the mountain. Only now, the crows have found him. You think of the old tales, that birds carry souls, that if you bury the dead too slow, their souls forget the path. You look at the boy again, then down at your own feet. Your boots are barely stitched together. They leak. They crunch through the snow and leave behind shapes like cracked hooves. You walk to him. You kneel. You take off your scarf, the thick one, the one your sister gave you last winter, the one that still smells like burnt pine and goat milk, and you wrap it around his face. You don't know why. You just do. And then you run, not because anyone saw you, not because you're afraid, but because doing anything kind in this village now feels like a crime. The next morning the boy is gone. The scarf is gone, too. But in its place is something small, something round, a coin, old, Mongol, imperial, one of the forbidden ones, the kind they say are cursed, the kind that was melted down to make the bell. You do not touch it. You back away, you do not breathe. That coin is a curse and a sign and a thank you and a threat all at once. You want to scream, but your scream would echo, and the echo would carry, so instead, you bury the coin with your foot. Softly, slowly, like you're hiding a secret, but you know better than to believe it's gone. The next day, your mother finds a red thread on your sleeping mat. It isn't yours, it isn't from your clothing. And it isn't just a thread, it's silk. Execution silk, folded once, knotted twice, left exactly where your head had been. You sit still for hours, staring at it. Your sister burns it when your mother isn't looking. But the smoke doesn't rise straight. It curls, then scatters, as if something unseen breathed it away. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you listen, for the crunch of boots, for the clink of coins. For the bell, but the bell does not ring, not yet, and still you wonder, what if it's not the bell that chooses who dies? What if the silence does? The bell didn't strike this morning, and that is somehow worse. Your breath hangs unmoving in the smoky hut. Outside, the frost hasn't melted, and the goat hasn't stirred. The children, what's left of them, remain curled beneath wool and wishbones. No birds, no thunder, no hoof beats on the road, and most terrifying of all, no sound of the bell, because at least when the bell rings, you know the rule. At least when the bell rings, there's a shape to the terror. But now there's just this. Waiting, you sweep ashes from the hearth with a bundle of rushes. You touch the rim of a clay bowl, still warm from the last of the barley. You count the winter onions hanging from the ceiling, 4. Too few for the weeks ahead, but you don't touch them, not yet, and still nothing, no bell. You used to wonder who rang it. As a child, you imagined some hulking brute with red eyes and no teeth, a creature who fed only on law and blood. You pictured him living underground in a hole lined with skulls, chained to the base of the wooden post, only allowed to rise when ordered by a general's spit or a shaman's whisper. But then you got older, and someone whispered the truth. The bell ringer wasn't a monster. He was a man, just like you, except He was never allowed to look back. They say the bell ringer came from the north, a frozen kingdom with no flags and no horses, just silence. He was brought by a royal inspector, his hands bound in black wool, his tongue half split. He couldn't speak, but he could ring, and he did. Every village, every winter, every time, he would arrive before dawn. Never seen approaching, always already there. His robes were always damp, as if he walked through rivers no map had drawn. He carried no food, no shoes, just a satchel of red silk and a bronze striker shaped like a horse's hoof. The rule was simple. He would ring the bell, and then he would walk away, and no one was to speak to him, or ask him what he'd seen, or look into his eyes, because those who did vanished before the next thaw. You remember once many years ago when the village elder tried to offer him broth, just broth. The man held out the bowl with both hands, bowing low, a gesture of peace, of shared winter, but the bell ringer didn't stop walking. He passed the elder, the bowl, the crowd, eyes cast down, feet soft against the snow, and when the elder reached after him, just a gentle touch to the sleeve. Nothing more, the bell ringer flinched, dropped his striker, shuddered like a whipped ox, and then turned around just once. It was the only time anyone saw his face, and within a week the elder had frozen to death in his sleep inside a locked house under 3 wool blankets. Nobody touched the body, not even the rats. So now the bell ringer never looks back. He comes, he rings, he walks. It is said he knows who must die. It is said he reads names in the ashes of the hearths. But perhaps the most terrifying thing they say is this, that he never forgets a face, even in the dark, even after the body is gone. You leave your hut at midday, cautiously. The sky is sharp and paper, thin. The snow crackles under your boots like dried bone. In the center of the village, the post still stands tall, narrow, ancient with the bell above it, glinting faintly with frost. But no silk is tied today. No red thread, no horseman's hoofprints, no sign that the bell ringer came. So what does it mean when he doesn't? Did no one die, or did someone die? Too badly. You pass the post, carefully, without pausing. But a child follows behind you, a girl with frostbite on her chin and a string of crow feathers tied to her wrist. She stops near the bell and looks up. You hiss a whisper, "Don't." She frowns. Why? You say nothing. Because the bell is listening. Back in your hut, the silence feels heavier than ever. You wrap your hands in wool, then unwrap them. You walk in circles. You check the onions again. Still 4, still untouched. And then, as the light begins to fade, you hear something. Not the bell. Worse, footsteps, close, wet, heavy. Your heart slows, not speeds. That's what fear does when it gets old. It doesn't scream, it drowns. You move to the doorway and lift the curtain, and there he is. The bell ringer, his robe soaked to the knees, his eyes downcast, his mouth sewn shut. He carries no bag this time, no silk, no striker. Only a folded slip of parchment, sealed with blood and fur. He holds it out, doesn't speak, doesn't look. You take it. Your hands tremble, and without a sound, he turns and walks away. He doesn't look back. He never does. And as he vanishes into the smoke, colored trees, you unseal the parchment. Inside, it simply says, "Tomorrow, the bell will not ring, but judgment will fall." You drop the parchment into the fire, and for the first time in years you begin to cry, but quietly, always quietly, because even tears are too loud for nights like this. But that is a story for tomorrow night. There is a boy who follows the bell. He does not ring it, not yet, but he carries the rope. You've seen him once or twice, from a distance pale as ash, wrapped in sheep's wool, eyes like thawed river ice. The older children call him names when the riders aren't looking. They hiss when he passes, then run away giggling, but never too loud, never when the bell might hear. He has no parents, or maybe he does, and they simply stopped claiming him after he was chosen. Because that's what they call it here, chosen. When the bell needs a new servant, the elders choose a child. Always a child, never older than 12, never someone who asks to be chosen, and never, ever someone with siblings. You were 8 the last time a new apprentice was taken. You remember the feast, or what passed for one, a goat slaughtered in silence, a table set beneath the watchtower, a girl in red silk who would not look anyone in the eye. She disappeared before morning, and the bell rang the next day. That boy is the new one. He's been there for 2 winters now. No one says his name aloud anymore. It's as if he has no need for one. He belongs to the bell now. The bell and the black, robed riders, and the thing behind the fence that nobody speaks of. And you think about him more often than you'd like. Not because you pity him, you don't, not really. But because something about the way he walks reminds you of yourself. The bell hasn't rung in 9 nights. That's rare. Long silences make people anxious. In the silence, neighbors start counting their sins, even the ones they didn't commit. You watch your father toss the ashes from the stove with nervous precision. You see your cousin walking farther to the stream, even though the well is full. Everyone moves as if being watched, and they are. Because a bell that sleeps too long means it's listening, and someone will feed it soon. You hear it in the way the crows have vanished, in the way no one sings to the babies, in the way old women suddenly offer you dried plums when they never did before. It's always like this, a hush before the knife. Then one evening, just as your mother begins boiling thin cabbage in silence, a knock comes to your door. Not a knock exactly, a thud, a rope, a seal, a piece of black cloth tied to a split reed. Your father opens it without a word. His face does not change. Your mother does not cry. The message is simple. Report to the east watchtower at sunrise. Bring the child. It doesn't say your name. It doesn't need to. You are the only child left on this side of the river. At sunrise, you are ready. You wear your cleanest wool shirt, the one your aunt stitched for you last new moon. You carry nothing. You eat nothing. There's no ceremony, just the path and the frost, and your mother brushing a curl from your brow like she did when you were 3. She does not follow you. No one does. Except him, the boy. He's waiting near the tower, standing next to a low, burning fire pit. His breath fogs in the air like a ghost with no name. He doesn't speak. He just nods once, barely perceptible, and points toward the hill. The bell is there, covered in cloth, still. You walk beside him. He walks like someone used to being followed but not joined. His arms are too thin, his hands too steady. He carries a small black satchel slung across his back, and every so often you hear it clink metal on bone. Or bone on metal. At the crest of the hill, he stops. He pulls a worn scroll from his satchel and unrolls it on a flat stone between you. It's not a message. It's a list, and at the bottom, a name, written in black ink, crooked and fast. Yours, you don't flinch. You've seen your name before, scribbled on the back of old prayer slips, etched into the fence posts, even muttered during someone's fever dream, but never here, never this way. He hands you a charcoal nub and a strip of birch bark. Write it again. He says. His voice is hoarse, too old for his face. You hesitate. He doesn't blink, so you do as he asks. You write your name. Carefully, slowly, as you were taught. Then he nods, folds the bark, pockets it, and says, "You passed. You don't understand what game this is. You thought the message meant death, but death never tests your handwriting." "What is this?" you ask, voice soft, dry. He doesn't answer right away, just sits on the stone and pulls a piece of dried meat from his pouch, offers you a piece. You don't take it. You're not to die. He says flatly, "Not yet." "Then why am I here?" He shrugs. "Because the bell is restless." You stare at it. The cloth cover flutters faintly in the wind. It looks almost like a person hunched in prayer. "You're not here to die," he says again. "You're here to witness." To witness what? He turns, and now you see his face fully for the first time. It is not cruel, but it is exhausted. Me. That night, the bell rings, not for death, for memory. The boy, the apprentice, leads you back to the tower after dusk. Inside is a room you didn't know existed, deep, low, carved into the earth. Lanterns hang from the ceiling like upside-down mushrooms. And the walls. The walls are covered in names, carved, burned, painted, inked. Every name of everyone who ever died here. Even the forgotten ones. Even the ones who were never supposed to be remembered. He hands you a brush and points to an empty space. You look at him. He looks at you and says softly, "Write it." Whose name, you ask? He points toward the dark, and you understand. You are not here to witness a death. You are here to remember one that was never written, one that was lost, a girl from 3 winters ago. No family, no name, just red silk and silence. You write her name anyway, a name that may not be hers, but could have been. And the bell sighs. For once, it does not echo like doom. It sounds like something being released. The boy exhales. So do you, and for the first time in your life. You wonder if you are afraid of the bell, or if you are becoming part of it. The smell of wet horsehide doesn't leave your clothes. It clings even after 4 rinses in river water, and a 5th in the sour. Smoke of sheep dung fire. You are certain the stench has soaked into your lungs, into your skin, into the threads that once came from your mother's hand. And it's not just horsehide. It's fear, dried blood, that oily stink that clings to the soldiers when they pass through the village and joke about whether they'll have to use the bell again. You are sitting by the creek, not to wash anything, just to be away from the hut, from the others, from the way no one looks at each other for longer than a moment, in case someone sees guilt or worse, recognition. It is nearly dusk, and no one is speaking about the rope. You thought they would, after what happened, after the way it was found, but no. No one wants to speak the story out loud. They are afraid the words will take root and grow into punishment. Still, it gnaws at you. That image, a thin red rope, hung low like a vine, tied between 2 fence posts, with a knot that no one can loosen. A knot that wasn't there the day before. No one admits to tying it. No one knows whose rope it is, but everyone saw it, and everyone knew what it meant. Not a game, not decoration, not an accident. It was a sign. You close your eyes now, beside the creek, and imagine cutting the rope, tossing it into the river and letting it float out toward the west, past the herder's camp, past the reeds. But you wouldn't dare, because if the bell rings again, they'll ask who disturbed it, and who let the story drift away. The knot itself looked simple, but it wasn't. You watched Yull try to pull it apart. A silent circle of villagers standing behind him, mouths tight, eyes narrow, his fingers yanked, twisted, picked at the tangle like a man unraveling fate itself. But the more he pulled, the tighter it held, as if the rope was alive. When his fingers bled, he stopped, stepped back. No one clapped. No one helped. They just left the rope where it was, hanging, watching. Waiting. Someone whispered, "Maybe it's an omen." Someone else muttered, "Maybe it's a test." And old Marta, the goat widow, spat on the dirt and said nothing. That night, the stars felt closer than they should have. You lay in your usual corner, the straw mat beneath you colder than last week, warmer than the next. You couldn't sleep, not because of the cold, not because of the mice, because of the knot. You saw it in your dreams, too, but it was around a neck. You couldn't tell whose. The face changed every time. Your brother, your mother, yourself. The dream never ended with a fall, only with the rope tightening, and the sound of the bell echoing through your bones like thunder, trapped in a cave. By morning, the rope was gone. No one admitted to taking it down, but a shallow groove remained in the fence post. The shape of a knot burned into the wood-like memory, and tied to your doorpost, without a word or warning, was a single white thread. Knotted once, tight. You didn't ask why. You didn't scream. You burned it in the hearth, quietly, but the smoke rose differently that day, straight up, no curl, no drift, like it had somewhere to go. Old Marta came to you after dusk. She didn't sit. She didn't smile. She only held out a folded piece of parchment, a rarity in this village, almost sacred, and said, "Read it before sleep, not after." You asked why. She didn't answer. She just pointed to your chest, where your breath sat heavy, and left. You held the parchment for a long time before opening it. The handwriting was careful, painfully so, the kind of writing that aches to be understood, even if it's afraid of what it has to say. It said, "When a knot refuses to come undone, do not force it. Leave it for the one whose hands made it. You stared at it and stared and stared until the ink blurred into dusk. You didn't sleep well that night. Not just because of the dream again, but because of the sound. A soft thumping, not from the bell, from your roof, from something climbing it. You held your breath, counted each scrape. It stopped near the chimney. And then you smelled smoke. Not your smoke. Another kind, sharp, sweet, wrong. You wanted to run, but your body didn't move. Your limbs had joined the silence. Your chest rose once, twice, then stopped. And when you finally opened your eyes again, morning had arrived. But the sun looked ashamed of itself, and on your doorstep another thread, this time black, tied in a loop, not burned, hung from a nail that wasn't there yesterday. No one else in the village mentioned it. They had their own symbols, their own threads. Some had none, some had 3. Yull had 7. You asked him why. He didn't answer, only showed you the inside of his palms red and raw from pulling at knots you can't untie. At dusk Marta returned. She didn't bring parchment this time, only a bowl of herbs and ash and horsehair. She set it beside your hearth, stirred it once, and whispered, "You can bury truth, but the roots remember." Then she looked at your door and spat. That night the bell didn't ring, but something worse did. A voice, low, careful, like wind that learned how to speak. It came from the riverbed. It said one word. You couldn't understand it. Not the language, but the shape of it. It curled in your ear like a curse, and when you turned to look outside, there was nothing there. Only the sound of a knot tightening. Sleep if you dare, because tomorrow you'll wake up with another thread. And maybe, just maybe, it'll have your name, but that is a story for tomorrow night. The first lie was small, barely worth whispering, but it grew, because it worked. You were 11 the first time you watched a man walk free after the bell had called for his death. His name was Chaghadai, a weaver with broken teeth and a good laugh. He once gave you 2 extra threads for free because your hands were red with cold. He told stories to the younger children about horses that could fly, and bandits who had to ask permission to rob your family, or else face the ghosts of the steppe. And then he stole not food, not fabric, not anything a poor man would need. He stole a knife, a soldier's knife, from the cart of a visiting officer. You saw him. You saw it happen. So did 2 others. You knew what came next, and yet that bell never rang, because Chaghadai whispered to the right person, or paid the right bribe, or perhaps told a story that someone needed to hear more than the truth. The soldier didn't pursue it. The cart rolled away, the knife disappeared, and Chaghadai lived. You didn't understand it then. You kept looking toward the gate, waiting for the guards to ride back, waiting for the post to be painted red, waiting for the sound, that sharp bronze strike that meant someone, somewhere, had finally told the truth. But it never came, and soon after it happened again. A hunter returned with more than he'd registered, and less than he'd promised. His cousin lied for him. His sister looked the other way. The bell slept through it all. By the time you were 14, you had learned something unspoken. The bell rings for those who can't afford silence. You have watched it swing for widows. You have watched it sleep for butchers, tax collectors, and favorite sons. It doesn't matter what it was made for, not anymore, and yet the village pretends. Every week, the wood beneath the bell is polished with crushed peach seeds and goat fat. Silk is re-dyed, the ground swept clean of dust and blood. The guards rehearse how they'll speak, how they'll look as they read the scroll. They tell you it is sacred. They tell you it is fair. And yet you remember that winter the merchant's daughter smothered her newborn, then bathed in sheep's milk and braided her hair in silver coins. The bell never rang. You remember that spring the orphan took an apple from the horse cart. The bell struck before he even swallowed. You remember, but you say nothing. Everyone says nothing, because to speak against the bell is to speak against the only thing that still keeps the village whole. Today, your hands are shaking, not because it is cold, but because the scroll has arrived, and this time, your name is on it. It wasn't a crime. Not really. You only passed a note, a warning, a folded scrap of linen that never even left the kitchen. But someone saw, someone whispered, someone needed your silence more than your breath. They seal the scroll in black wax, unbroken. You can see it sitting on the guard's table, unopened, waiting. The bell has not yet rung. But it will, unless what? Bribery, you own nothing. A story, you are no Chaghadai. Your tongue is too dry. Bloodline, you are from a line of salt. Cutters, your grandfather died with a mule's kick to the chest. Your mother weaves wool to stay alive. No one will lie for you, and so you begin to dig, not with a shovel, not with a blade, but with memory. Somewhere in your past there must be something worth saving. Someone who owes you. Someone whose silence once cost you something. You think of the boy whose leg you splinted last spring. The girl you sheltered from a storm beneath the butcher's arch. The elder whose ox you led home when the road was too steep. Are any of them still alive? Do any of them remember? Or were you always just another shadow passing across the yurt walls? The bell remains still. The guards laugh beneath the awning. One is already drunk. Another scratches his name into the wood with a knife, the same one stolen from the soldier so many winters ago. You're not sure why that detail matters, only that it feels like the beginning and the end of something. Like proof that the bell has always been a little deaf, night begins to fall, and for the first time you consider running, not far. You wouldn't make it far, but maybe far enough to die without ceremony, without silence, without that final clang that steals your name from the earth and tosses it into ash. You picture yourself sprinting barefoot past the cart tracks, past the dry riverbed, past the roots that trip cowards and thieves. But then you remember what happened last time someone ran, and how the bell still rang, only twice. Instead, you return home, quiet, measured, pretending that your heart is not on fire. Inside, your mother is making broth. She does not ask about the scroll. You eat in silence, each spoonful heavier than the last, and when the bowl is empty, she speaks, not of the bell, not of justice, but of mice. Did you know? She murmurs, they say the mice follow the blood trails of the condemned. That's why they sleep so close to us now. You nod. You do not know if it's true, but you believe it. And when you lie down for what might be the last time, you imagine a world where mice don't follow blood. But truth, tiny shadows scurrying between stories, chasing the lies, sniffing out silence. If they did, you think, the bell tower would be full of them. You fall asleep and dream of nothing, because the condemned don't get dreams. Only the bell did not ring. That's the most terrifying part. You expected it, didn't you? You waited for it, counted heartbeats, breath clouds, each shuffle of straw, each flicker of firelight. The moment never came, and yet the girl is gone. No screams, no soldiers, no blood across the snow. Just absence, quiet, clean, too clean, and something else you don't say this part aloud, not even to yourself, but you know it was wrong. The way it happened, the way the rules bent, no bell, no red silk, no ceremony, just her father sweeping the ashes before dawn and speaking to no one. Just her older brother stacking dung bricks like his hands aren't shaking. Just her mother washing cloth that doesn't have a single visible stain, but she scrubs anyway, like she's trying to erase a shadow. The girl with the wax, threaded braids and lopsided laugh simply isn't here. And no one mentions her name. You want to ask, of course, but you've learned. Mongol law isn't only in the courts. It's stitched into silence. It's upheld by what isn't said. Instead, you stay quiet and listen to the animals, to the snow, to the silences in the silences. You feed the fire slowly now. You even break the twigs more gently, not wanting them to snap too loud. But even in silence, the truth leaks. That afternoon, you're gathering dried herbs from the hanging rack. Your hands are shaking too much hunger, too little sleep, and your fingers fumble the twine. You almost miss it, almost, but not quite. Two elders pass behind the yurt's rear wall. You shouldn't hear anything. But the wall flap was tied slightly loose, and the wind carried their voices in just barely, like a secret slipping through a cracked door. It was done too soon. One of them says, the year isn't even folded. Better early than too late. the other replies. But the belle, shhh, she was 12, and born under the wrong star. But the belle, shhh, their boots crunch away through the snow. You press the herbs to your chest, not because you're cold, but because your heart might beat out of your ribs otherwise. 12, wrong star, no bell, that's not law. That's something older. Something older than Genghis, older than 10,000 yurts, older than names. That night, you barely sleep. You wrap your arms around yourself so tightly it feels like you're hugging a ghost. Maybe you are, the fire dies, the wind carries dust. The mice don't come tonight, but something else does. Not a sound, no, not this time, a sensation. It comes with the smoke from a neighbor's fire. It snakes through the fabric walls. It smells faintly of ash, fennel, and resin, and it makes the hairs rise on your arms before you even understand why. You sit up slowly. You don't know what's guiding you. It's not fear, not fully. Curiosity, maybe, or instinct, or a thread pulling you somewhere you've already been in a dream. You part the flap, step into the snow barefoot. You walk east, just past the frozen yam field, past the pile of broken harnesses, past the rock shaped like a shoulder blade, and there you see it, a knot of villagers huddled near the old apricot tree, the one that hasn't bloomed in years. Someone's drawn circles in the snow around it, 7 rings, perfect and deliberate. Candles flicker despite the wind. Wax runs down the sides of skulls set into the snow. You inhale sharply, but no one hears you, or perhaps they pretend not to. They chant something low and rhythmic. It doesn't sound Mongolian, not the dialect you know. It sounds older, like cracked ice and bone dust and things carried by wind that doesn't belong to the earth. And in the center where the rings meet lies a bundle wrapped in green silk. Too small to be firewood, too small to be livestock, too small. You want to look away, but you can't. Your eyes sting. You don't blink. You don't even know if you're breathing anymore. And then one of the women, an elder with silver, threaded braids, looks directly at you. She doesn't speak, she just stares and smiles, not kindly. You wake in your bed. You don't remember walking home. You don't remember the cold, or the wind, or the stars, but your feet are wet, and someone left 7 small circles carved in the frost on your windowsill. You say nothing the next day, but something's changed. You notice it in everyone's faces, too polite, too empty. Even the oxen are silent. Even the dogs don't bark. That evening, you overhear a word you don't recognize. Again, behind the yurt wall. This time, from 2 younger women passing a pouch of dried mare's milk between them. One says it softly, but you catch it anyway. Cork, hoy. Worm, that's what it means, you learn later. But not the kind in dirt, not the kind you can see. It's what they call a curse that hides in a child's stomach. It wriggles unseen, eats joy, eats obedience, eats future, and the only cure, sacrifice. Not with a bell, with ritual. You're not supposed to know this, but now you do, and you start looking at everyone differently. Who's been hiding, who's been sick, who's next. You wake on the 3rd night after the girl vanished and find something tied to your doorframe. Red silk, just a scrap, no official knot, but folded 7 times. You don't touch it. You don't even open the door. Instead, you sit with your back to the wall and wait for the sun. But dawn takes longer than usual. The crows scream in pairs. The snow smells like rust, and your breath hangs longer in the air, as if the cold is reluctant to let it go. The bell hasn't rung in 3 days, and suddenly that feels worse than if it had, because now you understand the bell isn't justice, it's a distraction, a public sound to cover a private silence. And in this village, in this forgotten throat of the steppe, some fates don't get a sound at all. Only a whisper, a candle, a circle in snow, and nothing left behind but silence. Your legs are numb, but you dare not shift. The cart wheels rattle beneath you, wooden spokes shrieking against packed dirt. You sit cross-legged between baskets of dried millet and pickled turnips, pretending you belong here. pretending you're not listening too closely to every bootstep outside. You've never left your valley, not really. The farthest you've ever gone was your aunt's funeral across the river, and even then, someone had to drag you by the wrist. Now the landscape rolls out wider than you ever imagined. Bare hills, charcoal grass, blue sky like cracked porcelain. Somewhere to the east, a falcon circles so high it might be a smudge on your vision. You stare until it disappears. The village grows small behind you, smaller than you thought possible. All those homes, the ones you memorized from your roof at night, blur into a smear of smoke and roof tile. Even the bell tower looks like a crooked finger pointing nowhere. You half expect it to ring again, but it doesn't. You don't know if that means you're safe or forgotten. The merchant cart you ride in is pulled by 2 oxen, one with a limp, the other with flies crusting its ears. The driver is a woman with windburned cheeks and a gaze like hammered iron. She hasn't spoken to you since you climbed in. She doesn't ask your name. She doesn't ask what you carry. She knows not to ask. Everyone here knows how to keep a secret, and yet you wonder what she thinks of you. The silent one with the shaking hands tucked beneath their sleeves. You haven't looked at her face directly. You're afraid of what you might see in it. Pity, disgust, recognition. You don't want to see any of those things, especially the last. The road forks at midday. One path leads toward the open steppe, dotted with lean toss and goats and families who wave as you pass. The other cuts sharply into a shadowed slope, where the land has begun to rise into soft gray hills and the soil looks bruised from old storms. The driver turns the oxen left toward the hills. You feel it immediately. The change in air, the way the sunlight dulls, the way every tree trunk stands too still, as if holding something inside. You grip the edge of the cart and brace, because you've heard of this road before. It's called Stone Mouth Pass, and what enters it doesn't always leave. You pass burial markers shaped like open mouths, piles of stone with nothing inside. No bones, no ash, no names, just the shape of hunger, repeated again and again across the slope like a warning. The oxen grunt, flies buzz louder. You keep your head down. They say the executioners used to bury their failures here. The ones who didn't die right, who screamed too long or begged too hard or made the mistake of speaking their own name out loud. You wonder if your name is still safe, if it ever was. In your lap is a pouch. Inside the pouch is a strip of bloodcloth and a small carved bead the size of your thumbnail. You haven't looked at either since you fled. But now you feel their weight again. You don't know what to do with them. Are they a curse, a sign, a forgotten kind of protection? Maybe you should throw them into one of the open mouth graves. Maybe that would be enough to erase you. But you don't. Instead, you clutch the pouch tighter and bow your head as the cart creaks deeper into the pass. By evening, your hands are raw from gripping the side of the cart. The wind has turned, colder now, and it carries a scent like burnt grain and old blood. The merchant pulls the oxen to a stop beside a cluster of standing stones. She doesn't speak, but the message is clear. We stop here, tonight. You climb down on legs that barely remember how to hold you. The stones form a half, circle. There's no fire pit, no shelter, just cracked shapes in the earth that someone once believed could keep out spirits. You set your back against one. The merchant sets out dried fish and old barley. You chew, but it tastes like regret. You sleep with one eye open, not out of fear, out of memory, because the last time you let both eyes close, the bell rang. Dawn comes slow and pale. The sky above the pass is gray, not with clouds, but with smoke from some distant fire you'll never reach. The merchant rises without a word. You follow. By midday, the hills fall away, and you see it. A new village, a wide, circular one, with tents instead of roofs, with banners instead of chimneys, with a tower in the center made of white painted bone. The bell is there, too, but it's not the same bell. This one is smaller, older, and cracked. You squint. That's when you realize it doesn't ring anymore. The village is too quiet, not dead, but trained. Children whisper. Men bow too quickly. Women tuck red ribbons into their sleeves when they pass the tower. You ask no questions. Neither does the merchant. She leaves you at the outer edge with a glance that says, "This is as far as I go." You nod because this finally is where you were told to go, to find the one who remembers your name, to return the pouch, to bury the truth before someone else digs it up. You walk past drying hides and tethered goats. You pass a woman sharpening arrows with her teeth. You pass a boy drawing circles in ash with a bone needle. None of them look at you directly, but one of them says they've been waiting. The hut is circular, low, and made of red clay packed with horsehair and straw. There's no door, just a thick curtain of bells. You push it aside. Inside, cool air, no smoke, no light, and in the center, seated on the floor with legs crossed like yours once were, is an old woman in blue. She doesn't look surprised to see you. She speaks before you do. "You took the pouch, didn't you?" You nod. Your voice is still missing. She gestures for you to sit. You do. She holds out her hand, not to take the pouch, but to hold your wrist. You let her. She doesn't look at the pouch. She doesn't look at your face. She closes her eyes, and then she says, "The bell rang for you, but the wrong name answered." Your stomach turns. You ask, finally, with a voice like dry reed, "Can I go back?" She smiles. Softly, "Would you want to?" You don't answer, because you don't know. You don't know what lives in your old village now. You don't know if the bell ever rang again. You don't know if the people whispered your name after you left, or if they burned it like old millet husks, forgotten in the wind. You only know what you carry, a pouch, a bell, a silence too heavy for one mouth. The woman holds your hand a moment longer, then she releases it. You stand. The curtain of bells jingles softly behind you as you leave. Outside, the wind has changed again. This time it smells like dry grass and freedom. The man in red appears before the guards do. That is how you know this isn't an execution. This is something worse. He does not speak. He does not look at anyone. He walks like the wind told him where to go. A long red robe clings to his legs like wet silk, dusty at the hem. His arms are hidden inside his sleeves tight across his chest, and his lips are the color of dried plum skin. He carries no weapon, only a pouch, and something too heavy to be just clothes inside. The village freezes, again, a third time in 1 week. There are no bells, no horses, no gongs, no drums, just the press of footsteps in dry snow, and the quiet ache that settles in your knees as you crouch too long behind the butcher's old yurt. You watch him pass. He doesn't blink. His eyes are too dark, or maybe too far away. He moves like someone walking toward a grave that's already dug. Even your uncle says nothing this time. He just tenses one hand on your back, the other on the small knife he keeps inside his sleeve. The man in red disappears into the shrine. A moment later, the guards appear on horseback. All 5 of them, faces unreadable, eyes focused ahead, their spears held straight like branches of the same tree. One carries a yellow banner with 3 curved lines, not the Khan's mark, not one you know. One of the younger boys near the edge of the gathering whispers, "He's not a monk." But you knew that already. They seal the shrine with 3 strips of paper, ink still wet, characters too strange to read. But your uncle bows low, deep enough that his face brushes the ground. You follow his lead. The man in red is not seen again that night. The guards camp at the shrine door. They build no fire. They speak little. They eat dried milk cakes and stare into the dark like they're waiting for it to answer. Your village breathes, but only just. At dawn, there's no bell, just a line of smoke. The shrine doors open, slowly. Carefully, and out comes the red-robed figure, still expressionless, still silent, but now he carries something else, a box made of blackened pine wood, with thin iron studs at each corner and a lock shaped like a jawbone. No one moves. He sets it gently in the snow and bows once lower than before, and leaves it. Then he walks, not toward the guards, not toward the road, not toward the Khan's outpost. He walks east, across the frozen river. Alone, the guards do not touch the box. They wait until midday, when the frost on the lid has melted, when the clouds have shifted overhead, when someone, maybe the spirits, give permission. Then one of them approaches and lifts it, and carries it straight to your uncle's door. The door does not open, not at first. Your uncle does not breathe. Your mother has already gathered every child inside and lit the oil lamp before the sun begins to fall. The shadows stretch long across the floor, thin and twitching like grasshoppers' legs. When the knock comes a single, flat rap on the wood, you are already kneeling. You do not look up. You do not want to look up. But the door opens anyway, and the guard does not speak. He simply places the box inside and walks away. The box is warm. It should not be warm, not in this cold, not after being left outside all morning. Your uncle does not touch it for a long time. He circles it 3 times, then places 1 coin silver, polished, older than your lifetime, on top of it. It rolls slightly, then stops. Only then does he open it. You are not allowed to look inside, but you hear his breath catch, and your mother gasp, and then nothing. He closes it just as quietly, then covers it with a black cloth and turns to you. "It's time," he says. Not cruelly, not sadly, just, finally, like a breath he's been holding since before you were born. And then, with a voice like dried reeds, he tells you something you do not understand. You are the keeper now. That night, sleep flees the village. Children cry in silence. Dogs bark at corners of air. The sky is a strange color, not black, not blue. Something in between that doesn't feel like night at all. No one speaks, not even the wind. The box remains covered. But its warmth seeps into the floorboards. At dawn, your uncle takes you to the river. He kneels beside you, takes a pinch of ash from his pocket, and throws it into the water. "For the forgotten," he murmurs. You whisper the same words, "For the forgotten." But you don't know who he means. Not yet. On the 7th day, the bell returns. You hear it before sunrise. A single hollow clang, but this time, it doesn't echo. It stays in your ears, in your chest, in your breath. A sound you carry even after silence returns. And when the village wakes, there is no silk tied to the shrine, no blood in the snow, no guards, just the box. Still warm, still waiting, and a question no one dares ask out loud. Who does the bell toll for? When no one dies, you can't remember when you last heard someone laugh. Real laughter, not the dry snort of a drunk elder or the stiff chuckle of a man bluffing to survive. You mean the kind that startles birds, the kind that spills from the belly, bright and sharp and alive. Maybe when I was still alive, maybe before the bell rang for her, maybe never. You sit on the edge of your sleeping platform, clutching the tea bowl your mother carved years ago. It's still warm. You poured the water from the guard's kettle when his back was turned. It cost you a favor and a glance that lingered too long. The bowl smells faintly of pine resin, but you can't taste anything anymore. You listen to the village through the felt door, someone's sharpening metal, someone's feeding a fire, someone's sobbing into a tunic they thought would stay clean. That's the part nobody talks about, the stains. When the bell rings, someone's job is to clean the blood, and no one wants that job, not even the dogs, who have stopped sniffing near the post. Even beasts know when something isn't meat anymore. You hold the bowl against your chest, not for warmth, but for memory. You try to think of the last time your mother sang. Not a lullaby, not a funeral wail, a real song. One of the ones with too many verses and a rhythm you had to tap into your thigh. You can't recall. Your mind's too full of numbers now, not songs. 4 days since the last bell. 2 names missing from the night watch. 1 horse returned without a rider. You used to count stars. Now you count disappearances. Outside, snow starts again, soft, quiet, sly. It always falls after the fires die down. A kind of mourning from the sky. You hear the creak of the leather strap holding the execution bell to its crossbeam. It hasn't rung today, yet. Your footsteps crunch louder than you'd like as you walk toward the center of the village. No one stops you. No one greets you. You've reached that strange middle zone of invisibility, not too poor to pity, not too useful to protect. That's where they like you, in the middle, muted, manageable. You make it to the well, lean against its rim and pretend to stretch your back. But you're watching, the tent with the red tassels, the guard whose left hand twitches when he lies. The 2 horses already saddled, breath clouding in the cold. They'll ride out by dusk. Someone always does after the letter arrives, and then tomorrow morning the bell will speak, unless unless you speak first. You didn't mean to get involved, not really. But information slips to those who don't demand it. And you've been quiet for years. So now people talk to you or near you. Or in rooms where they forget you're still stitching, still stirring, still scraping soot from pots. You know things you shouldn't, like what happened at the Riverside camp 2 weeks ago. Like why the cotton silk scarf was found in a child's sleeping bundle. Like who forged the new name tokens and who paid them to do it. And you know one more thing, the bell is not just for punishment, it's for politics. You saw the list once, not just names but instructions, some marked with ink, some marked with blood. You recognized a few. One of them was yours, not yet circled, but there, waiting, that night, your fingers twitch in your sleep. You dream of antlers and chains. In the dream, your village is a wheel. You stand in the center. Someone turns the rim slowly, and each face passes you watching, weeping, silent. And then the bell rings, but this time it rings for everyone. You wake to your own heartbeat. By morning, the campfire ashes have frozen into pale gray lace. You crouch beside the dying coals, poking them with a willow stick. The guard beside you spits and scratches his beard. Cold's getting in the marrow. He mutters, you nod. He doesn't know you saw his hands shaking last night. He doesn't know you found the page he dropped. He doesn't know you kept it. The list is different now. 4 names are gone, replaced by blank lines, and in the margins, a single symbol drawn in red. The mark they use when an execution must be done without sound. No bell. You read it again before burning the page, because now you understand what they're planning. They're changing the rules, and silent deaths don't echo. They vanish. The only sound that day is wind and footsteps. You follow them carefully, slowly, like a hunter pretending to be hunted. The guards are gathered by the southern slope. That's where the soil is softer. Easier to bury things that shouldn't be remembered. They're not digging a grave yet, just scouting, laughing. One tosses a coin. Another draws a line in the dirt with his knife. This one likes the ritual. They always do, right before the ritual disappears. You slip away before they notice your shadow. Back in your yurt, you light the last of your pine resin sticks. The smell floods your throat. Memories come uninvited. Your sister, Altai, singing off key. Your father's scarred hands lifting snow from the hearth. The day your mother fed the executioner first, and he didn't refuse. That was when you knew. He wasn't a man anymore. Just a function, like the bell. That night you make a decision. Not a loud one, not a noble one, but a quiet one. You will keep one name alive. Not yours, not yet, but someone's. You don't know how. Or if it will matter, or if it will buy you anything but more silence. But you will not let the bell go unanswered. You will speak, even if no one listens, even if it costs everything. Because one day the blood will stop washing away. And someone will ask, why was there a bell here? And maybe, just maybe, your voice will be the one that answers. You never saw the ox die, but you still think about him more than you think about your own future. He was the largest animal in the village, so large his breath came in steam. Clouds in the winter, so gentle the smallest children would rest their heads against his belly and fall asleep to the rhythm of his chewing. He wore a red string on his horn, not the silk of execution, but one of protection. It had been tied by the midwife's daughter during a fever year, with 3 knots and a spit for luck. Everyone knew it was just a string. Everyone knew luck was a story. Still, the ox lived a long time. When he finally stopped rising, when his great side no longer lifted or fell, you remember the silence that spread like a slow infection across the village. No shouts, no hammers, no hooves, just grief, the kind no one names because it's ridiculous to weep for something with a tail. But you did. Even now, curled beside a fireless hearth with your back to the wind. Sealed cracks in the wall, you think of the ox. Of the simple softness of him, of how he made the village feel more permanent, more real, more worthy of being remembered. Now, only a few old bones remain. One was turned into a ladle, one into a flute, and the skull, some say it was taken by the mountain priests, traded for salt or prayers. But you think it was just buried in the snow until it vanished. That's what happens out here. Everything vanishes eventually. Except the bell, except the memory of the bell, it has not rung since the night of the tattooed stranger, and that, somehow, is worse than hearing it. The silence is no longer expectant, it's uneasy, pregnant with possibilities, a silence that hides its face. The woman who was sent away that night, her name was Sarnai, you learn. Her husband has not returned from the mountain paths. Her brothers no longer speak above a grunt. And the neighbors who used to leave bowls of broth on her windowsill now pass the shuttered house without looking. You do not know if she's alive, or if she was taken, or if she waits behind those closed walls, watching for the sound that never came. Your uncle says it's best not to ask. Your aunt mutters, we've already buried too many things that were still breathing. But today, something changes. It begins with a horse without a rider. It stumbles through the mist before dawn, hooves trembling, eyes wide. Its saddle is stained, and its flanks are lathered with frozen sweat. It comes straight down the path from the high step, the sacred zone, where only the bell holders ride. No one claims it, no one speaks. It just stops in the center of the village, exhales a cloud of steam, and waits. There is something tied to the horn, not red silk, not rope, a lock of black hair. Your aunt turns away before anyone can ask. Your uncle starts to feed the hearth. And you feel it in your spine, not fear, not exactly, but the return of possibility. A new story, unformed, sharp-edged, tasting faintly of blood and frost. By evening, the horse is still there, but now it has company. A cart appears next, pulled by a man you do not recognize, wrapped in 3 layers of quilted leather, eyes like stone under the fur of his hat. He says nothing. He nods to the elders. He lowers the back of the cart. There are 6 barrels, sealed, burn, marked, numbered. You do not have to ask what's inside. Your uncle tells you before you can form the words. Salt, he whispers, the sacred kind, straight from the Tsagon caves. Salt is a story too here. It's a funeral rite, a food, a symbol, a warning. No one is happy to see it. The cart driver stays the night, sleeps beside the bell. He does not ring it. But in the morning it is gone again, the cart, the man, the barrels, and the horse. Only the hoof prints remain sharp and frozen, like pressed bones in the mud. That night the dreams come back, not yours, but the village. You can feel it in the air, in the way the dogs whine under the carts, in the way the hens refuse to leave their nests, in the way the firewood cracks without burning. Something is unsettled, and in your dream you see the ox again. He is not dead. He is walking, slowly, gently, behind a stranger in a long black robe, and tied to his horn is a bell. You wake up before it rings. In the days that follow, the stories fracture. The old woman who dries wild roots says she saw the executioner's ghost at the base of the shrine tree. The charcoal burner swears he heard weeping in the grain bins. The herder's son finds a second bell hidden behind the altar stone half the size, with no tongue. It feels like a test, but no one knows who is being tested. Your aunt starts sleeping with a knife under her pillow. Your uncle begins digging out the old offering bowls, and you, for reasons you don't understand, return to the place where the ox was buried. There is no marker, no shrine, only a slight curve in the ground, where the frost lies thinner. You kneel, you listen, you do not pray, but something in the earth answers anyway. A faint vibration, a heartbeat, know a rhythm, and you realize the bell is not gone. It's just changing its shape. Maybe it is no longer a sound, maybe it is now a law, an echo in the ribs of the villagers, in the breath of the widows, in the silence of the girl who never came back. You look to the sky and wonder if the bell never rings again. Will that be peace, or something worse? That's becoming your habit now, not to rise early, but to rise before the sky grows gray, before the goats stir, before the village draws breath and remembers it still exists. The hearth has gone out again. You don't bother relighting it. You know the smoke will just drift up and vanish like memory, like names. It's day 14 since the bell rang. Or was it 15? Nobody mocks the days anymore. Not out loud. You stare at the planks of your roof, tracing the grain of the wood like it's a map. but it leads nowhere. Just across the ceiling, just deeper into yourself. You know what's coming today. You've known for 2 days now. The jurors outside have grown quiet. The men are staying inside, the women too. Even the dogs seem ashamed. There is judgment coming, but not from heaven, from the judge. Not the Khan, not a shaman, not even a warrior. The judge wears no armor, carries no whip. He walks with a limp, and his left eye weeps from an old splinter wound. But what he speaks becomes. He names things. Then those things happen. He decides whether what happened was real or forgotten. And today he will dig up the floor. They say a man buried something under his home. Not treasure, not tools, a truth. Something he wasn't supposed to keep. Something the bell wasn't told about. And the judge, soft, spoken as he is, has declared that he will find it. Not tomorrow, not after council, today. He does not shout. He never does. He simply stands beside the yurt and waits. And that silence, his silence, does something to people. Makes them dig for him. Makes them confess things before he even arrives. You saw a boy cry yesterday, just from seeing the judge's shadow across the hay. He hadn't done anything, but guilt blooms in a village like this, even in children. You step outside, finally, the frost crackles under your bare feet. You haven't worn shoes in a week. Not since you gave your pear to the widow down the slope. She never said thank you, but her silence felt warmer than a prayer. You walk to the edge of the village, not too close, not too far where the cracked posts of the old tethering square stand like rotten teeth. From here you can see the judge's tent. It's unlike the others. No smoke hole, no meat hanging, no bundles of horsehair charms, just a dark blue canvas stitched with old wounds, not decorative real tears re-sewn by firelight. They say his tent is older than the village, that he inherited it from the first judge, whose name nobody remembers. They say the wolves won't go near it. Mid-morning comes, so does the judge. He moves slowly, not because he is old, but because people move for him. They part, they bow without realizing. Even the flies drift aside, and then he stops in front of the floor, a simple wooden patch inside a herder's yurt. A man who claimed he had nothing to hide, but everyone hides something. Even air has weight. The judge kneels. He doesn't ask for help. He pulls a thin iron hook from his sleeve, no longer than a knitting needle, and presses it between two boards. He listens. He closes his good eye. His other eye leaks down his cheek. You've seen this before, the ceremony of hearing what isn't said, the language of beams and dirt and forgotten bones, and then, with a soft crack, the board lifts. There's a sound you never forget, the sound of breath when it shouldn't be there, not your own, not wind, not echo, but something buried that still breathes. You hear it. Others hear it too. They step back, slowly, politely, as if death were just another honored guest. The judge reaches in. He pulls out a bundle, cloth, wet, red, wrapped in silence. It is not a body. It is not a weapon. It is something worse. It is a ledger, a record of names. People who should have been executed, but weren't. People who paid, who begged, who disappeared before judgment could arrive. People who survived the bell. The village gasps, but not loudly. Guilt is a soundless creature here. It sits on your shoulders, not your tongue. You feel your knees weaken, not because you're in the ledger, but because you're not, and you wonder why. Why did your name vanish when others remained? Why were you spared? Who made that decision for you? And what did it cost them? The judge speaks now, only 4 words, soft, sharp, final. Truth must be corrected. And with that he stands. He doesn't punish the man whose floor it was. He doesn't point at him. Doesn't shout. He simply walks back to his tent, ledger in hand, and that is worse, because now everyone will wonder which names will be added back in, which names will be spoken again, beneath the bell. You don't sleep that night. No one does. You sit beside your cold hearth, staring at the dirt floor, wondering what truths are buried beneath your home. Not ledgers, not bodies, but memories, moments. That time you didn't speak. That meal you hoarded. That glance you gave the wrong person. What if judgment isn't about what you did, but what you let happen? You watch the shadows on the wall stretch long. You hear the wind press against the yurt like a question, and you wonder, not for the first time, if the bell rang for you tomorrow. Would anyone speak your name? You hear it before the birds do, before the wind, before even your own name. The execution bell swings once at dawn, not with a joyful clang, but with a dull, low-throated groan, like something old and fed up with waiting. It startles nothing but memory. You are already awake. You've been awake for hours. Sleep fled you sometime during the night, replaced by that familiar cold sweat pooling beneath your shoulder blades. You sit up on your straw mat, brushing away a beetle crawling across your arm, and you listen. The bell tolls again, a little slower this time. You know what it means, not war, not judgment, not ceremony. It means someone is already kneeling by the yurt of the bell, keeper offering the name of another man, another neighbor, another relative, another accusation. In this village, punishment does not begin with a blade. It begins with permission, and permission is granted with a single word muttered at the base of the bell. You step outside, rubbing smoke from your eyes. A mist clings to the grass like ash, thin, ghostly, and wet enough to make the air feel like breath from an old animal's mouth. The village is quiet, but you know the paths are stirring, not from soldiers, not from horses, but from neighbors wrapped in furs, walking without speaking toward the bell. You follow them. Your feet know the way, even if your heart does not want to. You walk through the rows of low yurts, past animal pens still steaming with warmth, past women squatting in the dirt with bowls of barley and bruised knuckles, all of them pretending the bell is a distant thunder, not the thud of a neck against the earth. The bell tower isn't tall, it is not noble nor divine, it is squat, heavy, crude, built not to reach heaven, but to lean over you like a threat. Its posts are blackened with the oil of many hands, some pleading, some offering. You step close and smell the iron in the ropes, the piss on the stones, the smoke of old torches extinguished too late. No one looks directly at it, not even you. You do what everyone does. You glance once, like a mistake. Then you stare at the dirt. There is already a name given. You hear it in the mutterings behind you. Barcuda's youngest. Stole a goat, they said. Not the goat, the girl. Ah, worse. The crowd tightens. There is no counsel, no debate, no witness needed. You see the bell. Keeper's hand rise. The bell swings again. It is agreed. Execution will happen before sunset, and not by blade, not by rope, not even by horse. No, today is Elephant Day. There is a particular cruelty in the Mongol mind when elephants are involved, not native to this land, not born of the steppe, imported for fear, maintained for performance. You remember when the first one arrived, a black-skinned beast from the southern jungles, its eyes ringed in red, its tusks capped in bronze. It walked not like an animal, but like a drum beat. It did not trumpet. It groaned, and the man riding it, not a soldier, not a priest, just a boy, barely 16, holding a rope. You still remember what the elephant did to the man tied beneath it, not just the way the bones cracked, but the way the village cheered. It was not justice. It was hunger. You wander away before the preparations begin. You don't want to see the tethering, or the oiling of the tusks, or the boy practicing his commands. Instead, you go where the guilty used to run, to the ravine. It's not far, just past the west ridge, where the grass thins and the old deer bones hang in the trees like warnings. No one runs here anymore, not because it's forbidden, but because everyone knows. The bell hears everything. There is a tree at the edge of the ravine, blackened by lightning years ago. It stands crooked now, arms splayed like someone waiting for blame. You sit beneath it and listen to the silence, not peaceful, not gentle, just hollow, just like the hours before the elephant steps forward. You remember the first time you saw the punishment done. You were 12. It wasn't even in this village. It was farther east, near the river forks where caravans used to trade cloth for salt. The accused was a girl, 14. Her crime, she loved a soldier who loved another man. They said she poisoned the well out of grief, or rage, or spite. You never believed it, but it didn't matter, because her name had already been whispered to the bell, and once the bell swings, no one dares to stop it. When the elephant arrived that day, they didn't tie her down. They didn't need to. She lay on the ground quietly, staring at the sun like it would blink for her. You remember her last words. They weren't curses. They weren't prayers. They were, "Make sure my brother gets the ring." Then came the sound no grass should ever make, the sound no ribs were built to survive. The elephant did not pause. It crushed, then stepped back, just as trained, just as they wanted. You told no one you wept, not even your mother, especially not your father, because in this place, crying for the punished means questioning the punishment. And if you question the punishment, the bell remembers. You sit longer beneath the lightning tree, picking at the scabs on your fingers, trying to decide if the boy accused today really did what they say. But then you stop, because it doesn't matter. It never matters. Guilt is not a verdict here. It's a performance, and the bell is the stagehand. By midday, the bell rings twice more. The elephant is ready. The boy is tied at the waist, his arms pulled back so he cannot shield his face. He is blindfolded, but you're not sure why, as if not seeing will make the death easier. The villagers circle slowly, not eager, not afraid, just obedient. You stand at the back, behind a horse's flank, pretending you're just passing through. But no one passes through. Everyone watches. The boy begins to scream, not because the elephant is close, but because he can hear the cheers. Someone chants, another throws dust. A third sings the death song, as if it's a wedding. You do not look away. You cannot, because the boy is your cousin, and his father was the one who whispered his name to the bell. Why? Because he saw him steal a glance at a lord's daughter at the wrong time. In the wrong yurt. That was enough. That was always enough. The elephant steps forward. Its eyes look dead. Not evil, not enraged, just. Practiced, it lifts one foot, hangs, then drops. The sound is worse than thunder. You think you see a twitch, then another step, then another, then the wet, final one. There is no scream, only silence, then cheers. You leave before the cheering ends. You walk past the bell, past the yurts, past the place where he used to sharpen his knives. You do not stop until your knees ache and your breath thins. You sit beneath the sky and you wonder how many more names the bell can hold before it forgets your own. The sound of the bell does not come tonight. The sky hangs low, swollen with silence and the smell of wet leather. You keep expecting that familiar clang, sharp and metallic, like the universe clearing its throat, but the air holds back. There is no mourning in the village tonight, no thudding boots, no metallic screams dragged across stone. There is only quiet, and it is not the peaceful kind. It is the quiet of held breath, of eyes darting behind mud, slick curtains, of people wondering who and why and what has changed. You, however, do not wonder. You already know, because the punishment tonight will not require the bell. You are already awake when the guards arrive. You are not told to move, but they lead you anyway, slow and wordless. You've learned not to resist. You are not dragged. You are not bound. That would suggest fear. That would give you too much credit. Instead, they walk beside you, like handlers next to a well-trained animal, and for once, they do not carry chains, because tonight the executioner does not need them. The southern gate opens without sound. Just a groan of tired wood. The village does not watch this time. There is no crowd, no wailing wives, no curious children whispering behind their mothers' sleeves. The punishment has moved elsewhere. Tonight's theater plays on a different stage, one carved not of dust, but of trampled grass. You smell dung. You hear water sloshing in barrels. And then you feel it, the weight in the air. The breath of something so large it no longer feels like an animal, but a presence. You have never seen an elephant before. Most Mongols haven't. The empire took them long ago from warm lands far to the south. Gifts, then prisoners, then tools. They weren't bred here. They weren't meant to survive these winds. And yet, the creature that stands before you has done just that. It is colossal. Its legs are the width of tree trunks, its ears like cracked parchment. Its hide looks burned, as if some forgotten god reached down to test its skin and left soot behind. Its eyes are small, insultingly small for a creature of its size, and yet they see you. Not through you, not around you. It is not shackled. It does not trumpet. It does not need to move. It simply waits. And in that waiting, you understand, this is not a beast. This is an executioner. No order is given. No decree read. This is not the kind of justice that comes with scrolls or stamps or shouted names. This is an old punishment, an imperial punishment, a punishment so rare that most Mongol soldiers themselves have only heard of it from half. Sober merchants at crossroads taverns. Execution by elephant. They say the Persians did it, the Indians perfected it, and now, far from those southern temples and jungles, a lone elephant waits in a grass, stomped pen at the edge of a forgotten Mongol village, trained for one purpose, to kill. Slowly, the ground has been prepared. You see it now, a slope of packed earth lined with fresh mud, flanked by watching soldiers whose eyes do not blink. There are ropes nearby, but none are used. Because the elephant does not need them, because you will not run, not now, not here, not under this heavy sky where even the wind feels ashamed. The command is not spoken, it is gestured. A flat palm, a soft click of tongue, a nudge of a knee behind one thick gray ear, and the elephant moves. It does not charge. It does not roar. It lifts one leg and places it down, then another. It takes its time. Like a priest walking toward the altar, and still you do not run, not because you are brave, not because you are broken, but because this is the kind of death one must meet with dignity or not at all. And besides, where would you go? Where could you run that this creature could not reach? You are brought to the platform, a mound of old wood and trodden soil. You are made to kneel. There is no speech, no declaration, no last words. The villagers are not here. They do not know this ritual. This is not their tradition. This is older than them, older than the empire, older even than shame. This is punishment performed not to cleanse, but to remind. The elephant stands before you now. So close you smell the rot between its teeth, the salt in its sweat, the old blood in the creases of its feet, and then it lifts its leg, just one, massive, intentional. Silent, you feel the shadow before the weight, and still you do not flinch, but it does not crush your skull, not yet. It does not strike your back, or your neck, or your chest, instead. It presses its foot down onto your thigh. The pain is immediate, but not final. Bones give way not all at once, but like reeds snapping in slow succession. Skin does not tear, it warps. Pressure like an avalanche through a tunnel. Something inside you screams in a voice too primal for language. And the elephant, it does not blink, because this is what it was trained to do. You collapse, but they force you upright again. This is not over. This is never over with elephants. The point is not speed. The point is lesson. The creature steps back, looks down, considers, then moves again. The second foot finds your other leg. The cartilage in your knee explodes inward like rotted fruit. You scream this time. You did not mean to. The guards remain still. The handler remains still. Even the elephant remains still, but only briefly before moving again. Not toward your chest, not toward your skull, not toward mercy, but toward your hand. They say some elephants were trained to drag their victims by the limbs, not to kill immediately, but to disassemble. They say in India some were taught to throw prisoners in the air, to slice with sharpened tusks, to kneel slowly until the breath left the ribs in a long, leaking prayer. But not this one. This one is trained in pressure, in weight, in letting death take its time. The next crush comes without warning. Your ribs splinter, not break splinter. A difference you now understand in painful, granular detail. You cannot breathe, but you are still alive. You begin to hope it ends soon. And that is when you hear the bell. One clang, distant, faint, then two, then silence. No one moves. The elephant lowers its head, ears twitching. 3 clangs, the signal. It is done. The execution is called off. You are not going to die, not today. You collapse, convulsing, onto the mud. You feel your body or what remains of it being lifted, dragged. Why, you do not ask aloud. Your tongue is too thick. But in your skull, the question thrashes. Why stop? Why let you live? No one tells you, because no one speaks to animals, and that is what you've become. The sun has not yet risen, but the clouds are already the color of soaked grain sacks, heavy, sick with weight. The sky wants to weep, but it's holding back, just like you. You're still holding the thread. Still standing beside the wool, Divats. Still staring at the small, gloved hand that Jami tucked under his cloak before he walked away. He didn't look back. He didn't need to, because he knew you would. You always do. That is the curse of surviving. You stay behind, and you look. The rest of the dye workers begin packing up, carefully folding the prayer cloths that had been hung to protect the boiling pans from evil spirits. The village is deeply religious in a way that feels transactional. If you give the gods what they want, maybe they'll ignore you. That's the dream, isn't it? To be left alone. You let the thread fall into the vat. Let it vanish beneath the black. Red liquid, not silk, not gold, not imperial purple, just rot and rust and blood and beetroot, all boiled together into something vaguely called color. You glance once at the bucket of gallbladders. The dye master used to say it added permanence, but nothing is permanent, not color, not breath, not brothers. You think about Jami's hand again, how small it looked, and how quickly he'd learned to hide. That afternoon, the steward returns. He does not knock. No one knocks here. Doors are pushed open, not for hospitality, but for proof of life. You are slicing pickled turnips into fourths, counting the strokes so you don't count other things. He walks in, boots still wet from crossing the irrigation ditch, and scrapes the edge of his boot on your floor without apology. "Where's your brother?" He asks casually. You don't look up. You say, "Working the dye pits." He snorts. "Working?" Then spits into your hearth like it's a joke. There is no laughter. He walks around the room like he owns it, which technically he does. Every house belongs to the Khan. You are merely borrowing the walls. He lifts the lid off your stew pot, wrinkles his nose at the smell, then leans in closer. "I don't smell mutton." You shake your head once. "No ration this week." He watches you slice another piece. His voice gets quieter. "You know, girl, if your family wishes to remain unharmed, it helps to be more cooperative." You look at him, just once, steady. He means it. That's the terrifying part. He leaves with a jar of your pickled garlic and the heel of your bread. You bow as he exits, not in respect, but in fear. That night, you wake up to the sound of a knife falling, but it's only a spoon. Jami's curled in the corner, wrapped in the old goat. Hair blank, it you use when the frost is especially cruel. He doesn't sleep in the bed anymore. You asked once, but he didn't answer. Now you don't ask. You just add more water to the soup and pretend he's full. 3 days later, the bell rings again, not once. Twice? This is rare. Once means death. Twice means gather. The village square is filled by mid-morning. Old women wearing veils smeared with soot. Children picking their noses while they wait for the fear to end. Men scratching at their beards and pretending they understand what is coming. You stand beside the dye master. He grips your arm, hard. You hear someone whisper. A tax raid failed in the west. A nobleman died. His cousin wants retribution. Another voice mutters. They say the bell rings once for the guilty, and twice for the useless. You glance sideways. What does that mean? The woman shrugs. It means the grain count is low, and the Khan doesn't feed those who don't serve. The crowd parts suddenly. The steward arrives, behind him, a stranger. You don't recognize the man, but you recognize the robe. He wears the silk of the city, not the local mongrel. Dyed rags your village makes, not the faded, spit-washed uniform of a tax collector. This is real silk, imperial weave, edged with bone, white thread not stitched, but couched, as the tailors in Karakoram do. The man steps forward and raises one hand. He doesn't speak Mongol. He speaks in clipped, formal Chinese. The steward translates. This is an envoy from the Khan's household. He brings an announcement. The man unfolds a scroll. It crackles. You imagine it smells like candle wax and rice paste. He begins to read. By decree of the Khan's first cousin, Prince Balud, all rural settlements within the 4th taxation ring shall submit names for conscription within 3 days' time. A ripple moves through the crowd. Someone gasps. Another stumbles backward. A man curses under his breath. The steward waits, then lifts his own voice. Those who cannot contribute soldiers must contribute service, or livestock. The dye master beside you tightens his grip again. But your eyes are fixed on Jami. He stands beside a goat cart, holding the reins, his face blank. He doesn't look at you. Later that evening, the dye master calls a meeting in the storage hut. Only a few of you come. The old women, the thread sorters, the boy who stirs the vats with a wooden oar too long for his arms. The master lights a beeswax stub and places it between 2 empty dye jars. The steward will ask us. He says simply. You all nod. He continues, if we lose more hands, the work stops. And if the work stops, he doesn't finish. You all know. If the village's dye quotas aren't met, the Khan's patience will run out. And the bell will ring again. You don't sleep that night. You press your cheek to the mud-brick wall and listen to the wind carry dry leaves past your door. Then, another sound, soft, fragile. It's Jami. Crying, not loudly, not openly, just that thin, dry sob that slips out between breaths. A child's sob. You walk over, you kneel beside him, you tuck the edge of the blanket under his chin, gently, like your mother used to do. He whispers, I don't want to go. You press your fingers to his cheek. You don't say, you won't, because you can't promise that. So you whisper, then we'll hide you. By morning, you've made a plan. The goat shed has a false floor, used once, long ago, to smuggle flour during a drought. Nobody remembers it now. You'll tuck Jami below it, with a wool blanket, a water flask, and half a pickled onion. He'll stay quiet, just for a few days, until the envoy leaves, and if they search, you'll lie, like your father did, like your mother did, like every peasant must eventually. You are not dead. That alone surprises you. You thought the body might simply give in, slip beneath the surface of pain and not return, but it hasn't, not yet. Instead, you lie still and cold on the damp ground beside the arena. They've tossed you somewhere between a refuse ditch and a cart full of broken baskets. The mud sticks to your back like rotten glue. Somewhere nearby, a soldier cracks sunflower seeds with his teeth. That popping sound, cheeky and slow, feels crueler than a blow. The crowd has thinned. The day's amusements are over. But the air still hums, as though thousands of hands had clapped their heat into the soil. You blink, your eyelids feel made of stone, and still you are not dead. Maybe that's worse. You try to lift your arm. It moves an inch, no more. Your body is a mosaic of bruises. Blue on green on yellow. Strips of skin puffed up like rising dough. You've been trampled, whipped, nearly crushed by the will of a beast. But not entirely. Something inside you, something very ancient, very stupid, refuses to go. Not yet, it says, not yet. You smell blood, not fresh. Yours, probably, or the guards, or the elephants. Everything reeks of iron and bile and burnt hair. You remember the torch, the way they danced it in front of the animal's face, the way the elephant's eyes, dark as rain clouds, flicked toward you and paused. That pause saved your life, for now. A low moan draws your attention. You roll your head, slowly, like a sun-rotted melon tilting on its stem. Someone lies next to you. It's the scholar, the one who shouted your name through the bars. The one who said the king was watching. He's bloodied too. His robes are torn down the front, his glasses cracked and resting beside his cheek. His left hand is bent at an unnatural angle. He turns his face to you. Still breathing, he croaks. You try to answer. A sound escapes somewhere between a cough and a laugh. He smiles good. He whispers, that makes two of us. You sleep, not deeply, not restfully. Your dreams are full of smoke and crushing footsteps and the deep, mournful trumpet of an elephant's rage. In your dreams you are always running, but never fast enough. When you wake again, it is night. A soldier squats nearby, sharpening a spear with rhythmic, lazy movements. The sparks it casts briefly light up the world in stuttering glimpses. In one, you see the elephant again, not performing, not punishing, just standing, swaying slightly in a pen made of palm trunks and thick rope. Its tusks are blackened with something dark, sap maybe or soot, and its eyes, still searching, not for you perhaps, but not away from you either. The soldier notices your gaze. Ah, he says, spitting. You like the beast, eh? You don't answer. He leans closer. She didn't kill you. That's rare. Usually she doesn't stop. Something strange about this one. His tone is half amusement, half suspicion. She stopped. He continues, voice lower now. The king noticed. You are pulled to your feet the next morning by two guards with faces like carved gourds. Swollen, grinning, indifferent. They do not speak. They drag you through a hallway that smells of dry lotus leaves and oil. The palace is quieter today. The festivities are over, but the silence feels tight, not empty, like a deep breath held too long. You are taken, not to the dungeon, not to the arena, but to a garden. You do not understand. It is lush and strange, full of spiraling trees and ponds shaped like calligraphy. Everything here seems symbolic, each petal placed with intention, each stepping stone like a metaphor no one bothers to explain. And there, in the center, beneath a woven parasol, the king waits. You do not look directly at him. You've learned that much. You bow, barely able to stand. Your knees buckle. A guard pushes you upright again. The king's voice is soft, smooth. I watched you. He says, I saw what the elephant did, or didn't do. You keep your eyes low. I've seen her crush the skull of a traitor like a fruit. He continues, and she hesitated for you. You do not speak. You intrigue me. The king says, that is not always a good thing. He waves his hand. A servant steps forward and places something at your feet. A bowl of rice. Steam rises from it. You stare at it for a long time. Eat. The king says, and so you do. Later, the scholar visits you in a room with an open lattice ceiling. You lie on woven mats. Your bones feel like old wood, but they've given you herbs. Strange ones that dull the edges of the pain. You're a legend now. The scholar says softly, smiling as he peels an orange. The one who lived, the one the elephant spared. You say nothing. I don't know what he plans for you, but you're being moved to the training quarter. You blink, training, of elephants. He says, offering you a slice. You're not being executed anymore. You're being studied. The elephant has a name. They tell you this only after 3 days of observation. Her name is Sundari. It means beautiful. You don't say it aloud. Not yet, but you carry the name like a small, glowing stone in your chest. You're allowed to approach her now, under supervision, of course. 4 guards with arrows watch from raised wooden platforms. They call them cloud towers, not for beauty, for killing from above. You are handed a pail of water, a basket of bananas, a broom made of coarse grass. No one explains what to do. You kneel slowly and begin to clean around her pen. Sundari watches, and you watch her. No words are exchanged, but something, small, weightless, passes between you. It is not trust, not yet, but it is no longer fear. You learn her habits. She does not like loud noises. She sleeps standing unless it rains. She will not eat sugarcane if it is broken, only whole stalks. She listens when the mahout whistles in a descending scale, but only when the sun is high, and she never forgets a face. You know this because on the 6th day she lifts her trunk toward you and does not strike. Instead, she holds it in the air, waiting. You freeze. The guards knock their arrows. You lift the banana. She takes it from your palm. The moment lasts a century. Then the guards lower their bows. You are not praised. You are not punished. You are merely noted. One evening, the scholar visits again. He sits beside you, watching the fireflies blink across the trees. They want you to teach others now. He says, how to avoid death. You laugh. It hurts your ribs. They think it was skill. He adds, you shake your head. I think it was something else. He continues, something the court doesn't understand, a bond, or maybe a refusal. You glance towards Sundari's enclosure. She is asleep, peaceful, huge, terrible, beautiful. You lie awake that night. The stars are cruelly bright. The pain in your body is still there, but quieter, like an old dog too tired to bark. You remember the first time you saw the execution ground, the blood, the crowds, the sounds of bones snapping like dry wood. And you remember the silence after the elephant stopped. That silence echoes still, not just around you, inside you, a silence so full it speaks. And what it says is this: you were not meant to die like that. Not yet, and still, you wonder what happens now. What does a man become when he outlives his own punishment? Are you free, or just caught in a more beautiful cage? The stars offer no answers, they only burn. You do not sleep that night. It isn't the wind, though it does howl outside like a drunk spirit pacing the cliffs. It isn't the guards, either, who snore thickly from their post by the door. It's not even the dreams of bells, or boots, or ash. No, it is something smaller, something soft. It's the bucket. It sits under the edge of the sleeping platform, tucked into the shadows like an animal trap. Wooden, circular, innocuous. You wouldn't have even noticed it, except that when you shifted to turn your aching back away from the fire, your toe had bumped against it, just barely. And when it scraped the floor, it made no sound. Just pressure, like brushing against cloth, and then just barely it exhaled. You stare into the dark. Why? Died and flat on your back. The low ceiling looks like it's sagging. The girl beside you, the one whose sister was taken, rolls over and pulls her fur tighter. She doesn't stir again. No one does. No one heard it but you. And now you know it's not a bucket, not really. You wait until morning. Just before the first guard rises to stoke the embers, you move slowly, casually, pretending to need the latrine. Your fingers slip down under the platform's edge and grip the rim of the bucket. It is warm, not from the fire from within. You pull it out and place it silently on the packed dirt floor. It is not filled with water, not with milk or waste or salted meat. It is filled with hair. Thick black strands, hundreds, maybe thousands, wound and looped and bound with blood. Darkened twine. Some are braided neatly, like temple offerings. Some are still tangled with the thin silver of scalp. You cannot tell if the blood is fresh or ancient. The hair smells of camphor and ash. There's something else tucked into the bottom of the bucket, something softer than wool. You dig into it, then stop. Your fingers freeze. It's a child's robe, still warm, still soft, still tied neatly at the waist with an embroidered belt. You drop the robe and shove the bucket back under the bed. You push it so hard it thuds against the wall, and that's what finally wakes one of the guards. But he only mutters something about dogs and rolls over. No one else sees it. No one but you. Later that day, you go with the girl and two others to the small temple cave on the edge of the village. There is a spring that bubbles under the rocks. The guards say it's the only water pure enough to drink without being touched by execution. It's a lie. All the water here is touched. You can taste it. Even the fog smells metallic, but you go anyway. You need to breathe where there are no bells. The girl doesn't speak anymore. Not since the night her sister was taken. But she walks ahead of you, eyes darting from tree to tree. She doesn't cry. She listens. As you near the cave, she suddenly stops. Her arm stretches out to block your path. Wait. She whispers, don't move. You freeze. In the stillness, you hear it, a light clinking. Metal on metal, it comes from above. You slowly raise your eyes. High above the forest floor, strung between two trees, hangs a delicate chain of bronze bells. But these are not the execution bells, these are smaller. Dozens of them, wind chimes almost, but instead of rope or iron, they are hung with long loops of braided hair. Some black, some brown, some white, some still red. The girl says nothing, but she begins to climb. You shout in a hoarse whisper for her to come down, but she ignores you. Her bare feet grip the bark like a tree cat. The chain of bells sways. One falls. You duck to catch it before it strikes the rocks. Too late, it hits the ground but does not ring. Because there is something inside, you crouch down, pull apart the bronze frame. It's hollow. Stuffed into the cavity is a tiny bone, a tooth, a child's molar. The wind stirs. The bells above sway gently. The forest is full of them, hundreds, thousands. The girl returns minutes later, face pale, fists full of torn braid. Mine, she whispers, and you realize she found her sister's hair. Hung in the trees, back in the village, you don't speak of it. You don't need to. That night, the girl tucks the braid under her fur and finally sleeps. You do not. Because now you have a question you can't stop asking. If the executioners shave the condemned, who gathers the hair and who weaves it into bells, and who hides it in buckets under sleeping mats? You think of the sleeping quarters, the mother who never looks up, the boy who mutters in his sleep, the firekeeper who never lets the flames die, the wrinkled woman who chews rice into paste and spits it into the soup pot. You think of them all, and you wonder, what part do they play in the ringing? The next morning a cart arrives. This alone would be unusual, but what shocks everyone is what rides on the cart, or rather, who, a nobleman, not a Mongol, a court official from the south. His robes are stiff with embroidery. His hat is still pinned in place. He sits between two armed guards, back straight, expression unreadable. He steps down and announces his name in a loud, clear voice. I am here to observe justice, he says. No one cheers, no one speaks, not even the bell ringer. He produces a scroll, unrolls it, reads aloud a list of crimes that sound impossible: theft of ceremonial grain, mockery of divine punishment, refusal to kneel before the ancestral horn, harboring a runaway executioner. That last one makes your blood go cold. He's not here for justice. He's here for a hunt. You notice it during supper. The old woman who chews rice is gone. So is the boy with the sleep mutterings. So is the bucket. You check under the platform 3 times, empty. The girl looks at you. Why? Died. Did you tell them? She whispers. You shake your head. No. But she doesn't believe you, not fully. And now the guards are awake. They eat in full armor. They do not speak. They do not drink. They only watch. And outside, somewhere deeper than the bell tower, the earth hums. That night, the execution bell doesn't ring. But you hear something else. Not a scream, not even a cry. A moan, long and low and soft like wind through wet reeds. It comes from the western edge of the village, where the burial pits lie. No one is buried here whole. Only parts. You wrap your blanket around your shoulders and slip out. The girl follows. You do not tell her to stop. You move like thieves, like ghosts. The moaning grows louder. You reach the edge of the pits. And there, barely lit by the sliver of moon, you see him, the nobleman, kneeling, his scroll burned, his robe shredded, his hands shaking. He is surrounded by hair, mounds of it, some loose, some braided, some crawling with flies, and in front of him, half buried in the black mud, is a bell larger than any you've seen before. 7 feet tall, iron, shaped like a hollow head. It rests mouth down in the earth, as if it were dropped from the sky. The nobleman lifts his face, sees you, and whispers, "They told me it would sing." Then he lifts his hands and begins to climb inside. You cannot stop him. You don't move. You don't breathe. The girl clutches your arm, nails digging into your skin. And then he is gone. The bell swallows him. The moaning stops, not because he is dead, but because now he's part of the song. You return before dawn. Your mouth tastes of iron. Your dreams are full of hair. And from somewhere deep beneath the village, you hear it, a new bell, ringing once, slowly, as if woken from sleep. You didn't hear the birds this morning, only the wind. It dragged low across the steppe like a ghost pulling the hem of its robe. There were no hoofbeats, no cartwheels groaning, no drunk humming from the old herder near the granary. Just wind and the bell, always the bell. You thought perhaps by now it would have stopped, that the iron tongue would wear itself out on air, but the wind kept it swinging, not hard, just enough, like a breath that couldn't end. Gonchig's body still lay where it fell, half buried in ash. The execution cart was still overturned. His wife had not come back for him. No one had. You step out into the morning smoke. The village is awake, but not moving. Women sit on their haunches with their arms around their knees. Children stand beside them silently, not knowing whether to run or weep. The blacksmith leans on his hammer like a cane, staring up at the hill. The bell tower stands crooked now. Not broken, just tired. And you are the only one still waiting for a command that may never come. Last night, no one slept. Not after the storm. Not after the thunder that wasn't thunder. You'd heard it, the Mongol army didn't knock when it came. It sounded like mountains breaking open, like history changing its mind, but the campfires never arrived. No horns, no flags, no cruel singing, just the wind, just the bell, and now a village caught between two silences. You press your palm against the dirt, as the elders taught you, trying to feel for vibrations. There are none. You stand. The rice porridge in your stomach, if you can call it that, is mostly boiled chaff. Your ribs press through your tunic when you breathe. The oxen haven't been seen in 2 days, and the dogs are turning on the bones in the waste pit. You've seen 2 children pass out this week. One of them hasn't woken up. You look around the village, something is coming, or something has ended, but no one knows which, and so, as always, it falls to the bell. The rope is still there, swinging gently from the blackened tower. You know what you have to do. No one's asked it of you, but the village is waiting. You climb the steps slowly. Each board creaks underfoot. The sun makes the ash sparkle like frost. You count the steps 10, 15, 20. Then you reach the platform. From up here, the whole world looks like it's holding its breath. You grab the rope and pull. The bell tolls once, not sharply, not like before. Just a long, slow groan of iron. It doesn't echo. It just falls. Straight down, into the dirt, into the lungs of every person in the village. You pull again, once, twice, then a third time. There, the message is sent. Not a warning, not a death sentence, just the truth. You are still here, and the world is still waiting. You let go of the rope. Let it sway in the wind, and you descend. The village begins to move, slowly, not like life returning, but like animals crawling from their dens after a fire. You see Dolgen the widow with one eye take her grandson by the hand and lead him toward the old bathhouse. You see Tsogd the fishmonger rewrap his bandaged hand and head toward the cold stream. No one speaks, but you can feel the shift. They are not waking. They are remembering they're alive. You help move Gonchig's body. His face is hard as wood. You wrap his hands over his chest, tie his knees, and carry him yourself to the burial slope. No prayers, just the wind. The grave is shallow, the ground's too hard to dig deeper. But you cover him well, and when you return to the village, someone has started boiling millet. You don't ask who. You don't want to break the spell. By afternoon, the sky begins to clear. Not blue, not yet, but less like the roof of a cave. Children kick pebbles again. The blacksmith begins hammering something that isn't a weapon. The executioner's bell still sways gently, but it no longer sounds angry, and just before dusk, something strange happens. A rider arrives alone. He does not wear the colors of any clan, no horsehair banners, no lacquered armor. His robe is wool, thick with road dust. His horse is foaming at the mouth, but not from galloping from fear. The rider stops in the center of the square. He does not dismount. You and 10 others gather near. He does not bow, does not greet. He simply speaks. There will be no army. No one replies. The Khan is dead. The rider says flatly, 3 sons, all claim the crown. They tear each other's throats now. The capital is smoke. The roads are closed. Still no one moves. The rider's eyes, they look past you, as if he's not speaking to the village, but to something older, the stones, the wind, the bones beneath your feet. You are forgotten. He says at last, there will be no tax, no rope, no summons, no lord. He turns his horse, does not wait for thanks, and rides. By nightfall the bell is silent. You do not ring it, nor does anyone else. You sit instead under the collapsed awning near the granary, legs stretched, face in your hands. You should be overjoyed. You should be running through the village like a boy again, dancing, shouting. No masters, no collectors, no gallows, but all you feel is stillness. Freedom comes late when you've been bent for so long. It doesn't arrive like lightning. It arrives like breath, like a space inside you that was never allowed to grow. Finally opening, you let your eyes close, just for a moment, and then you hear it. Not the bell, A different sound, high, wooden, rhythmic, a drum, no hooves, but not many. You stand, and there, against the pale moonlight, you see them. 3 figures on foot, not armed, not armored, but not villagers either. Their gait is wrong, controlled, trained. They wear robes black and gray. They do not carry weapons openly, but you can see the long sleeves, the way their arms move, hidden things. Knives, maybe. One has a sash of green fabric tied diagonally across his chest, a signal you don't recognize. They stop just outside the circle of firelight. Say nothing. You step forward. Who are you? The tallest answers. We're here for the bell. The words strike harder than they should. You blink. It doesn't work. There's nothing to ring. They smile, all 3 of them, and then he says it. Exactly. You don't sleep that night? Neither does anyone else. You sit beside the bell tower, staring at the men in gray robes who make camp just beyond the stream. They don't eat, don't speak. They simply wait, and when the sun rises, they are gone. But in their place lies a scroll, hung carefully from the bell's rope. You unroll it. There's no signature, just a mark, a circle of teeth, and 5 words. The bell must stay silent. But that is a story for tomorrow night.